So this is an address to those in favor of more restrictive gun laws, namely the lawmakers that are responsible for passing and pushing for some of these more restrictive gun laws. But for those of you who don't fall into that category, still please feel free to listen and share this with other people. But this is mainly an address to those in favor of more gun control laws. And the first question I'm going to present, well, the question I'm going to present to you is, at what point do you take responsibility for the lives you've harmed with these laws? And I'm going to use 3 incidences to illustrate my point. The first incident happened in Killeen, Texas, 1991. A lunatic walked into Luby's and murdered 23 people. Now, a quick fact, take into consideration, shall issue concealed carry laws weren't passed in Texas until 1995. For those of you who might have been wondering. So, this in essence makes Luby's a gun-free zone. Survivor of this incident, Miss Susan Gracia Hupp, did not carry her pistol in there that day, though she wished she would have. The reason she didn't carry her pistol in her there that day with her is because she was following the law. She wanted to be like every other law-abiding citizen. She didn't want to break the law. Now, that prohibition on carrying guns did not stop that lunatic from walking in there using his guns to murder 23 people. What it did do was stop Susan Gracia Hupp from carrying that pistol she could have used after she noticed what was going on, from stopping that madman. Her parents, as well as several other people, could have still been alive today had she been allowed to carry her pistol into that restaurant. Okay, moving on to the next incident. The next incident is the case of Amanda Collins. For those of you who don't know, Amanda Collins was a college student. She was a black belt in Taekwondo. She's a concealed carry license holder. However, the night she was raped, she did not have her pistol on her. And the reason for that being was because the campus obviously was a, quote, I shouldn't say quote, it was a gun-free zone. It was a place that legally barred even the concealed handgun license holders from carrying that night. She was raped. At a hearing, she'd stated that the only reason why she wasn't carrying her gun was because she was following the law, and had she had her gun, the situation would have turned out very differently. She would have been able to stop herself from getting raped, and subsequent victims probably wouldn't have been raped, and that rapist went on to murder probably would still be alive. To which State Senator Hudak pretty much told her, well, the statistics aren't on your side, even though he didn't really cite any statistics. But to that, Ms. Collins responded, "You weren't there, I was." Okay, some interesting things to take into consideration about that night. Police cruisers were supposedly less than 50 feet away. Fact that all these supposed anti-rape activists and, quote, rape culture, unquote, feminists, stood silent on the issue, possibly because, Hudak was a Democrat, and we all know that the feminists are a Democrat voting base. But nonetheless, I want you to take into considerations State Senator Hudak's comments on that. I'm going to bring up the next case I want to talk about. In Georgia, there was an intruder broke into somebody's home with a crowbar. As this intruder continued to ransack the place, he made it to the closet and noticed the homeowner and her 2 children were hiding in the closet. Now, is it far-fetched to believe that this intruder couldn't have and wouldn't have beat this woman and her 2 children to death with that crowbar to, eliminate the witnesses? I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that, and I don't think anybody with a lick of common sense would believe it's too far-fetched. Didn't turn out that way, though. That woman had a .38 caliber revolver. She fired 6 times, hitting the intruder 5 of the 6 times. Put a stop to that attack. But let's say she didn't have that revolver. Either the licensing system to own it was too restrictive, which, by the way, thankfully in Georgia, you don't have to have a license to own a pistol or a revolver. But say she was in a place like New York and she couldn't get a license, or she didn't even want to try to go through that process to get a license. Or perhaps she was in D.C. before 2008 and she wasn't legally allowed to have a handgun anyway, so she didn't have a handgun. And she was murdered by that intruder, same for her kids. What do you think these lawmakers would have to say about that? The ones, you gun control advocates, what would you have to say about that? And if you're going to sit there and say, well, you know what, we know it didn't save that one life. Screw you. Because every time you've had a chance to come forward and say, you know what, you're right, we could have probably saved some lives had we not had this restriction on there. All I hear from gun control advocates and these lawmakers supporting these restrictive gun laws is a deflection, or just a sidestep of the issue altogether. So, with that being said, is it any shock to you that there is a segment of the population that just simply through with trying to deal with you? Does it come as a shock to you that we do have a lot of gun rights advocates that are saying, that are starting to say, well, you know what, we're done. What part of shall not infringe do you not understand? We're done trying to talk with you. We're done trying to negotiate with you, and we're done trying to compromise with you. Or are you just that conceited, blind, or ignorant to the facts? Does it come as a shock for us to say, you know what, we're through trusting you? Because it shouldn't. Thank you, that is all.